Hey, welcome back to my monthly market update. I'm Brendan Payne with the Brendan Payne Expert Advisors team at Century 21, the Harrelson Group. And as always, thank you for watching these updates of what's going on here locally along the Grand Strand. And thank you for allowing me to be your real estate resource here. I will always cover a few of the metrics, which I want to jump into. But this is one of those, going into the fourth quarter about a month ago, we were interested in seeing kind of what was happening with a couple of key points, namely inventory and new pending sales. So I want to go through those. And then at the end of this video, make sure and watch to the end, because I do want to give you a couple of points that right now, as a property owner, that you should really be taken into account right now, because each part of the market's different. So watch to the end where I give you a couple of things that if you own property here that you need to make sure that you're doing here over the next 60 to 90 days. So let's jump right in. New listings. Now, this is all residential. There's no residential, or there's no lots in these numbers, just residential homes and condos. New listings up slightly from September, just a small amount from the month of September versus October. Now, here's the thing though, when you look at adjusting back to last year over the same time period, so October of 2022 versus right now, we're up over 20% in new listings. That's new properties that came on the market in the month of October versus the same time period last year is up over 20%. Now, make note of that, because I'm going to give you another figure here towards the end that's going to really kind of hit home on where that's coming from, what's driving that. Pending sales are slightly up from September. And when I say slightly, like it was less than probably 20. So they're basically flat in new pendings, and it's really flat over the same time last year. So not a real big change in the new contracts that are going, or new properties that are going under contract in that same period. So if you've got rising inventory and you've got flat sales or new properties going under contract, then of course that's increasing the supply, which you'll also see as affecting a couple other things too when I go through those metrics. Closed sales from September are down about 10% month over month. Now, part of that is seasonal. We typically will expect that. It's interesting, November, December, January are typically three of the months where we've got the fewest amount of closings, versus the most amount of closings usually May, June, July. They kind of flip-flop in those 3 months. Not surprising, things going on with the holidays and stuff like that. There are fewer transactions, so that's expected. We're down a little over September, and we're flat to last year. So the closings so far have been flat to last year, but that indicator of the new pendings is really kind of what we're watching to see, because new pendings today will be next month's closed sales, and so on and so forth. And then days on the market keeps inching up. If you remember back in late 2020, all the way through 2021, in the first quarter of 2022, we were in the teens. Days on the market was in the teens. So it was not, even measurable in months. It was usually like between 10, 15, 18 days. That's kind of where it hovered for at least 16, 18 months. Now we're at about 109 days on the market. And the interesting thing is 90 or 109 days on the market is a little over 3 months. That's not necessarily a bad thing. The challenge though is that in a lot of those properties, there are fewer buyers for that category. So it's not like they're not saleable. It's just there are fewer buyers in some of the categories where you've got a high concentration of people that buy with mortgages. In some of the areas where you've got a high concentration of cash buyers, you don't see the days on market that high. But all in all, over the course of several years, if you look at it, 109 days isn't terrible. It just feels like it's forever, when not too long ago it was taking 15, 18, 20 days to get a property under contract. Now, special note that I mentioned a couple minutes ago when we were talking about the inventory. So overall, the new listings, both condos and residentials, up 20%. condo new listings in the month of October versus the same time period last year. So October 23 versus October 22, new listings on the MLS for condos was up 36%. Okay, so what's happening there? Well, part of it is we've got a lot of stuff in the oceanfront. We've got a lot of seasonal rentals. So we typically see inventory go up in the fall. The challenge is the new contracts, the new pendings aren't going up along with that. So when you have that supply demand imbalance, then you see a lot of what we're seeing in some parts of the condo market is there's downward pressure on prices. So in some buildings, we're seeing it along the oceanfront and the resort type properties or second row golf course communities, a lot of the short-term rentals. In some of those communities, we're seeing a ton of inventory, few sales, putting downward pressure on the prices. Then you can look at other buildings that might be, maybe they're a little newer. Maybe they do a little bit more in rental income. There's something that makes them a little bit more appealing. Maybe it's just a smaller complex, a smaller building. Those may be sitting there with very little inventory. It's really interesting. I get calls every week from owners that have properties that are doing short-term rentals. They're not their primary residence. They're trying to decide what to do. And they ask, how's the market? And the market depends on what you own right now, because in some buildings you look and there's all kinds of inventory, downward pressure on prices, and probably not going to see a lot of change there. They're going to continue to have that pressure until they can relieve some of that inventory. Other buildings you pull up and there's nothing available. So if one were to go on the market in a building like that, where it's a good building and there's no inventory, no downward pressure on prices, they're probably going to sell at or maybe even slightly above the most recent sales there, because it's just a supply and demand game. Like, that's what always drives prices. So really, really important that you you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on for your area, what you own, which brings me to a couple of points that I want to make sure. If you are a property owner right now, my suggestion, 4 of them, is evaluate your holdings right now. Meaning, if it's your primary residence, you have to have somewhere to live. So unless you're moving or you're trying to move up into another property or downsize or something like that, then you probably, there's not a lot of different things to consider. Do you like your home? Do you like where you're at? Or do you want to move? That's kind of what happens with our primary residence. If it's not a primary residence, there's a lot of things that go into it. And this is the time you should be evaluating, what's my goal with this? Did I buy it at one point and I was using it a ton? Now I'm not, and I have to consider what's my long-term plan. Really evaluate what is the goal with the property going forward. Second step is, once you've established that, get an updated value of your properties. If you're only watching the headlines, if you're only looking and saying, well, this is what's going on in the national market, or this is what's going on in the Carolinas, or even this is what's going on in the Grand Strand, those headlines do not tell the whole story when it comes to actually trying to determine what's the value of your property or what's impacting the value right now. So dial in, get an actual valuation for your individual property. There are a lot of different micro markets within the Grand Strand. Number 3, my suggestion, after about 18 years of selling full-time in this market and dealing with several thousand sellers over that period of time, if it's your primary residence, make your decision based off of where you ultimately want to be. So many times we make our decision based off of what we think is going to happen in the market, and we don't predict it right. If it's your primary residence, you want to buy something now and you're thinking, maybe I should wait because this will happen or this will happen. Do what you want. Be happy where you want in the home that you want. Now, the 4th suggestion is, if it's an investment property or a rental or something like that, then my suggestion is make your decisions based off of financially what makes the most sense. Again, back to trying to predict what's going to happen in the market or time the market, just usually doesn't work out. Are there people that are able to time the market and sell at the top? Yes. They're lucky. The timing just happened that they were lucky. And the ones that missed the market, they just missed the market. There was no, there was no controlling it. We can't predict it. All we can do is get the information that we need, look at the information, and then decide what makes the most sense for you based off of your plan. So if you need some updated information on values in your area or in the properties that you own, feel free to reach out to me. There's never any obligation. I weekly am sending people updates, not just CMAs. I mean, you can go and pull up the last sales in any community online. But when someone asks me, hey, tell me kind of what the valuation of what's going on in there, I actually will dig in and see what's the time on the market, what is your property offer versus some of the other ones that have sold, and give you some good indication of if you are going to be on the market, here's the likely value range that you'd have. So if that's helpful to you, please reach out to me anytime. Thank you again for watching these updates. And if you have any other specific questions about the market in general or your property specifically, don't hesitate to reach out, and we will talk to you again soon.